top 10 conspiracy theories. No, I think it's this one right here.
Missing Japanese citizens.
Missing Japanese
One
people.
night in June 1978, a 22-year-old single mother of 2 kids named Yaiko Taguchi was working her usual shift in Tokyo, Japan's cabaret Hollywood. After finishing her shift right at around midnight, Yaiko left the cabaret through the front door and was never seen again. At first, nobody thought that anything serious had happened to Yaiko. In fact, several years later, her manager was questioned, and he claims that everyone thought she had quit when she failed to show up. At around that time, there had been rumors going around that several North Korean spies were working undercover in Japan looking to abduct innocent citizens and hold them as hostages back in North Korea. However, this was seen by the Japanese government as nothing more than a conspiracy theory that couldn't possibly be true. Sadly, the missing case of Yaiko went cold, and it wasn't until almost a decade later that a clue to her whereabouts emerged following a disturbing chain of events. In November 1987, as South Korea was preparing to host the Olympics in the capital city of Seoul, a Korean Airlines plane blew up in mid-air as it was flying over the Andaman Sea, taking the lives of 115 innocent people.
Damn.
During the investigation, it was revealed that 2 North Korean agents acting under direct orders from the North Korean government had planted a bomb in an overhead storage compartment before getting off at the first layover in Abu Dhabi. As the authorities were closing in on the 2 suspects, one of them took his life with a cyanide-laced cigarette, but the South Korean government was able to arrest the other agent responsible for the attack. During her interrogation, it was revealed that she had been training for that mission for 6 years, and that for 3 of them she had been paired with Yaiko Taguchi, who had taught her how to speak and act like a Japanese woman so she could fly under the radar. As it was later revealed, Yaiko wasn't the only woman who had been kidnapped by the North Korean government. As of today, 17 Japanese citizens have been officially confirmed by the Japanese government as having been abducted by North Korea from 1977 to 1983. Disturbingly, a lot of them were shamelessly kidnapped in the middle of the day and thrown on a boat to North Korea. You might think that the victims were involved in something shady that put them on the North Korean government's radar, but the investigations actually suggest that most of them were average citizens who just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. One woman was captured while she was walking to a knitting class, and 2 others were kidnapped on a vacation to Europe. Another one, a 13-year-old girl, was taken as she was walking back home from school. Some of these victims were kidnapped for identity theft purposes, while others, like Yaiko, were forcefully brought to North Korea to teach the Japanese language and culture to North Korean spies. After the kidnappings were confirmed beyond the shadow of a doubt, the North Korean government had no choice but to come forward and apologize, but they claimed that only 5 of the 17 kidnapping victims were still alive. Over the next few years, the North Korean government would send what they would claim to be the cremated remains of some of the deceased victims back to Japan. However, as DNA testing would quickly reveal, pretty much all of the remains were fake, leading the Japanese government to believe that many more of the kidnapping victims were still alive. To this day, the North Korean government has stuck to its story, claiming that there were only 13 kidnapping victims and that the ones who were still alive were sent back safely to Japan. Shockingly, while the Japanese government has officially confirmed 17 kidnappings, the list of potential victims suggests that the true number could be as high as 800.
Damn.
Sadly, given the current political situation, it's unlikely we'll ever see the full extent of these abductions, or see the North Korean government held truly accountable for its horrific crimes. Just the other day, I found myself wasting hours of time I could have spent working on videos trying to find and cancel active subscriptions. That's why I've partnered with Rocket.
I know you bullshit with an ad inside your video. I got an ad block on it for a reason.
That helps you cancel subscriptions, lower bills, and manage your money better. The favorite feature of mine being canceling subscriptions. It feels like everything has a subscription service these days, making it extremely difficult to keep track of all of them. For example, I used to have a subscription to a clothing brand that charged me monthly to get small discounts, but the monthly fee was way more than the discounts I ended up getting. I quickly found out that canceling my subscription was 1, hard to find where to do, and 2, difficult to do because the agent helping me was constantly trying to offer me more deals to avoid canceling my subscription. With Rocket Money, all of this is done for you. So, to take control of your finances today,
oh yeah.
Heart Attack Gun.
Wait. Yeah.
Heart Attack
You right there next to him.
For free.
We're glad you're here now, live.
Heart Attack Gun.
Heart Attack
Back
Gun.
in the 70s, a journalist named Seymour Hersh published an article.
Yo, I know where they going with this. And watch this. I know I'm gonna bring up somebody. If they don't bring up the person who they finna say they use this on, I'm gonna tell you who they used this on. Watch this.
From the New York Times, in which he accused the CIA of several assassination attempts on both foreign and American politicians who they considered to be anti-war dissidents. Due to these allegations, the US Senate put the CIA under investigation for alleged covert action abuses, which resulted in the release of 14 reports on major abuses committed by the CIA, FBI, and NSA. The majority of the reports included accusations of crimes such as opening and resealing US citizens' private mail for several years and illegally surveilling Black Power activists. Although
crazy.
These claims are obviously pretty serious, they paled in comparison to one particular accusation, or conspiracy theory, which alleged that the CIA had developed a pistol that could fire a poison dart over 300 feet, take a person's life, and leave absolutely no trace as to the cause of death.
Yeah.
As it was later revealed, this theory turned out to be true, and the development of the poison dart gun was just one part of the program called MK Naomi, through which the CIA had sought to develop weapons for biological warfare. In 1975, William Colby, the CIA director at the time, had to testify in front of the committee that was investigating the agency. During questioning, he claimed that the CIA had developed a host of biological weapons as part of a plan to eliminate German leaders during World War II, but that their research had continued until well after the war. He also mentioned that the poison dart gun was almost completely silent on account of the battery that was housed inside the handle, and that it had been specifically designed for the target to feel nothing more than a mosquito bite when the dart struck. Interestingly, the agency had used a specific shellfish toxin to make it impossible for anyone to know what the cause of death was, leading forensic pathologists to believe that the victim had suffered an inexplicable heart attack.
That's wild.
It wouldn't help pathologists that the dart was designed to melt inside the body so that it only left a small red mark where it entered the victim. When asked if the heart attack gun, as it was nicknamed, was ever used on anyone, the director alleged that it had only been used for experiments and that there were no records of actual use. As part of the investigation, the CIA had to hand over the gun to the committee, and there are some pretty wild pictures of the committee members analyzing the gun as William Colby answers their questions about it. Normally, you'd expect to see something like the heart attack gun in a spy movie, and it's pretty wild to think that if they hadn't put it under investigation, they would have probably gotten away with using it for who knows what purposes. It's also pretty crazy to think that if that's the kind of stuff they were developing back in the 70s, imagine the kind of technology they have their hands on now.
Exactly.
Disturbingly, the hearing was the only time the heart attack gun was ever shown publicly, and to this day, it remains unclear what happened to it after the investigation.
You know what happened to that shit. They used that shit.
Rogue waves. Sailors often get a reputation for making up stuff they claim to have seen during their time out at sea, and because there's no one there to refute their claims, they sometimes get away with some pretty tall tales. For centuries, sailors all around the world had talked about seeing monster waves on the open sea that would allegedly reach over 100 feet in height.
I can't do big bodies.
In 1826, a French captain claimed that he had seen a 108-foot tall wave in the Indian Ocean. Even though he had 3 sailors with him who backed up his claims, when he came back to the mainland, he was publicly ridiculed by the scientific community, as it was widely believed that it was impossible for a wave to be higher than 30 feet tall. For a long while after that, dozens of people continued to claim sightings of these monstrous waves in the middle of the ocean, but with no real evidence other than eyewitness testimonies, the existence of these waves fell into the urban legend or conspiracy theory category.
800 feet?
In the 80s and early 90s, the Draupner platform was set up in the North Sea off the coast of Norway to extract natural gas. As part of the protocol that was carried out to see if the platform was stable enough to withstand the rough seas, a wave height recorder was installed on the platform. On New Year's Day in 1995, the sensor recorded an 84-foot tall wave, which served as the first real piece of evidence for the existence of rogue waves. After this incident, a lot of people started wondering how many of the sailors from previous centuries had been telling the truth. What's more disturbing than that is that there were probably hundreds of disappeared sailors from all around the world who had come across a rogue wave, also known as a monster wave or a freak wave. But because most people who encountered 100-foot tall rogue waves generally didn't live to tell the tale, their testimony
that's the highest paying job to be out there.
Since the Draupner wave of 1995, there's been a growing interest in rogue waves brewing in the scientific community. A few years ago, a professor at the Australian National University had estimated that at any given moment there are 10 rogue waves active in the world's oceans. As of today, a rogue wave is usually defined as a wave that is twice as large as the largest waves that come up in a particular area. And while the root cause of rogue waves continues to be investigated, it's generally accepted that these monster waves appear when 2 wave crests join together at the exact right time, resulting in a massive wave that can sink even the largest ships and oil rigs. Interestingly, it's also been discovered that rogue waves can take place in large lakes.
How they built
In
that
1975, a freighter named the SS Edmund Fitzgerald sank in Lake Superior under some pretty mysterious circumstances, with a lot of people in the scientific community coming up with all kinds of hypotheses.
Tell me if I can hear this right here. Tell me if I can hear this.
It wasn't until several years later that the scientists started theorizing that the vessel could have fallen prey to a set of 3 consecutive killer rogue waves. A phenomenon referred to as the Three Sisters, in which the first wave destabilizes the ship, the second wave hits the ship's deck before it can stabilize again, and the third wave overloads the ship with more water than it can take on. If this were true, it could also provide an explanation for the mysterious sinking of other large ships in oceans around the world over the past few centuries, but this might be a bit more difficult to prove. Poisonous alcohol. In January 1920, the 18th Amendment to the US Constitution was successfully ratified, triggering a 13-year period known as Prohibition, during which the production, sale, and transportation of alcohol was made illegal. During this period, the government enforced some pretty strict measures to prevent bootlegging of alcohol, which made the alcohol black market flourish like crazy. It was pretty much a playground for the mafia, in which the government would raid one bar and another one would crop up in just a few days' time. While all of this was happening, there were some pretty messed up rumors floating around that the US government was taking extreme measures to make sure people weren't consuming alcohol. These included allegations that the government was intentionally poisoning alcohol to make people who consumed it sick.
Yo, John! Appreciate you pulling up, though. We doing conspiracy theory
pretty
Tuesday.
Quickly on New Year's Day 1927, when 41 people died from alcohol poisoning at New York's Bellevue Hospital.
Oh, they were making that bullshit alcohol.
Autopsies revealed that a lot of the victims had been drinking industrial methanol, otherwise known as wood alcohol, which can be fatal even at low doses. It turns out that the government had forced companies to denature industrial alcohol to make it undrinkable since 1906, which was far before Prohibition.
I remember
seeing alcohol started, the government ordered these companies to add quinine, methyl alcohol, and other toxic chemicals to discourage people from drinking it. Their reasoning was that if black market dealers knew their alcohol had been poisoned, they wouldn't dare distribute it knowing how dangerous it would be for their customers to consume. I guess they forgot to factor in that the demand for alcohol at the time was absolutely insane, and that black market dealers didn't care
a lot of
who
people
lived or
died
died from consuming their product. It wasn't until December 1933, 6 years after the Bellevue incident, that the federal government finally toned down their abstinence from alcohol policies. But by then, thousands of Americans had already been poisoned with contaminated alcohol. Gorillas.
Now what kind? Let me see before. What kind of conspiracy theory is gonna happen with the goddamn gorillas? Rest in peace, that boy, Harambe.
Nowadays, there's really nothing too shocking about seeing a gorilla in a zoo or on TV. But there was once a time when gorillas were considered to be in the same category as the chupacabra, the Jersey Devil, Bigfoot, and the Loch Ness Monster. I was able to find that up until a couple of centuries ago, gorillas were considered cryptids, which are animals that are believed by some to exist somewhere in the wild, but whose existence has never been proven. With most of these creatures alleged...
I'm gonna get right back to it. But it's some crazy stuff about dragons. Yeah, that's a whole nother storyline about dragons. I'm gonna see if I can look it up after this.
Sightings often turn out to be hoaxes, but obviously in the case of gorillas, what were once just rumors turned out to be true. Western explorers wouldn't come across a gorilla until around the 1500s, when an English explorer named Andrew Battelle was captured by the Portuguese off the coast of West Africa. While he was held captive on the mainland, Battelle described these disturbing, giant, ape-like creatures that would occasionally prowl around his campfire, but because he had never seen a similar creature before, he described them more as monsters than as animals. Battelle's description sent the rest of the world into what we can only call a gorilla frenzy, with all kinds of rumors being spread about these allegedly bloodthirsty, dangerous creatures living in exotic parts of the world. Over the next couple hundred years, the buzz around gorillas grew as explorers in Africa sent back illustrations of gorillas to Europe,
about dinosaurs.
Which were often given to royalty and emperors.
Dinosaurs never was a real thing.
If you were to ask any European back then what a gorilla was, they would...
Because they were saying, why all the animals on this chart exist we know about besides dragons. And then they don't show dinosaurs. They show dinosaurs, and you know, I gotta find it.
Would have described it in a similar way to how we describe Bigfoot or the chupacabra nowadays. They were thought of more as mythical monsters than regular animals. It wasn't until over 200 years or so later that an American naturalist named Thomas S. Savage found a gorilla skull in 1847 during an expedition to Africa, which was the first piece of real proof for the existence of these animals. Naturally, this triggered a bunch of new expeditions to the area, and between 1855 and 1859, French explorer Paul Duchaillu confirmed the existence of gorillas and even brought some back dead. Just as Andrew Battelle before him, Paul Duchaillu also described gorillas as these savage, bloodthirsty creatures which stuck in the public mind for a long time. Around 15 years later, some German explorers brought back a baby gorilla from Africa to Liverpool, even putting up some towels on the ship so he could swing around and entertain himself on the long journey back. As you can probably imagine, as soon as the ship arrived back in Liverpool, people started flocking around the hotel where the gorilla was allegedly being kept to catch a glimpse of the once mythical creature. To the public's dismay, Pongo the gorilla wasn't the massive, violent monster they had thought, but rather a cute little 2-year-old gorilla who loved to play with dogs. A few years later in 1902, a German explorer named Robert von Beringe killed 2 mountain gorillas, which were huge in comparison to the baby gorilla that the previous German explorers had brought back. And that was really the first time the public was able to understand what a full-sized adult gorilla looked like. It's pretty crazy to think that at some point these animals that we now see as normal were once seen as legendary monsters. Interestingly, if you really look at the research, there are a ton of other animals that we now take for granted that were once brushed off as hoaxes, including kangaroos, platypuses, giant squids, and Komodo dragons.
Komodo dragons!
Turning out to be true, it really makes you wonder how many animals are out there that we have no idea even exist.
Did y'all see about this though? Let me show y'all this. Did y'all see this? Did y'all see this though? Hold on. This shit right here. This shit right here.
Discover the hidden masterpiece. Beneath the 16th century painting, Life of San Severo at the Church of St. George Maggiore in Naples, Italy, lies a stunning surprise, a hidden painting showcasing St. George bravely slaying a dragon. Uncovered during restoration, this remarkable find reveals the unique dual artwork preserved through the centuries. Discover the hidden...
Fuck! That right there, though. It was a painting. They had a painting in the room. Then I found out years later, just recently, when they lift this painting back, there's another painting behind it. We're gonna pick some pink salt mines after this. I'll tell you why when you do it. How miners risk their lives. They risk their lives for this human flesh that drives. I need to smoke. Jern, you stupid, bruh. You stupid.
At first glance, many people might mistake this for the process of mining gemstones, but in reality, it is a special type of salt, Himalayan pink salt. This salt is extracted from ancient salt mines that were formed millions of years ago when the primordial ocean evaporated, leaving behind salt deposits deep beneath the foothills of the Himalayas in Pakistan. Pink salt contains more than 80 trace minerals such as iron, potassium, calcium, and magnesium, which give it its characteristic pink color and high nutritional value. Beyond replacing refined salt in cooking, helping to balance minerals and enhance flavor, pink salt is also carved into blocks to make licking stones for horses and livestock, providing them with natural mineral supplements. Another fascinating use is salt lamps. Large chunks of pink salt are hollowed out and fitted with a light bulb inside. When lit, they emit a warm glow that creates a relaxing, nature-inspired atmosphere, and are also believed to have air-purifying properties. At first glance, many people might mistake this for the process of
Just look, take a look at these salt mines. What are we looking at here? What do you think you're looking at? Because I know what this resembles. I know what I'm looking at. But I want you to tell me, what do these caves actually look like to you? What does it look like we're inside of here?
Attack on Titan.
Like, look at all these slabs of rocks. They look like slabs of meat, like identical. Look at it. Does this not look like slabs of meat? Does this not look like slabs of meat to you? Because it looks like slabs of meat to me. Like, here, take this piece of meat. If we were to dry freeze it, smash it with a hammer, it will look like it blew up into a million pieces of pink Himalayan salt. Why does it look exactly like these pieces of meat? Here's another one. Just look, take a look.
The Kyoto salt mine here.
There's a theory going around that Himalayan salt is petrified giants. We'll take a look at the video that kind of started this theory to blow up recently. Some evidence of what exactly Himalayan salt is, where is it from, how is it found, is this in connection to the dead Nephilim that died in the flood of Noah? And actually at the end of the video, we'll look at either way. For sure, there's some connection here to the Nephilim, which is pretty interesting. So we'll start this video off here on the video that started it all, really. This is kind of in just connection to the petrified giants, or mountains are petrified giants. That theory's been around for a while, but this Himalayan thing just has blown up recently. Shady Vibes is the guy who uploaded the video here.
Okay, hold on a second. Were the giants so tall, the ancient giants, were they so freaking tall that he had to flood the earth for 40 days and 40 nights to be able to submerge them? Anything less, like, why did he pick that specific amount of time? That was obviously enough to do the job. The job was to get rid of the giants. So we're talking titans, dude. Like, I'm not talking that tree. Like, that would have been like a peon, like a micro giant. I'm not talking about the Afghan giant either. We're talking titans. Now, where would...
I'll pause the video a few times in this just to give a little bit of context, and at least biblically in my opinion here, that's, you know, the 40 days, 40 nights, that's something that we're seeing throughout biblical history. Jesus
40 days, 40 nights, nigga.
The temptation in the desert. So this is just a number that is sometimes used, and that just, the 40 days, 40 nights, I don't understand how that plays into the height of the giant. I mean, just no matter how tall they are, if God flooded the earth a couple days, however long it takes them they can't swim anymore. I'm not sure how that 40 days, 40 nights thing ties into the height thing there.
Giants go during a flood to try to escape it. Probably the tops of the highest hill, the highest mountain they could get to, right? Where do they find pink salt? On top of and in a giant mountain. What does pink salt look like? Have you ever looked in a pink salt mine before? Type in pink salt mine, look on the inside of it. It looks eerily similar to that of human muscle fibers.
We'll look at a video here on some pink salt mines in Pakistan. We'll look at some of the locations here on Google Maps of these salt mines. They actually come from really one location in the earth mainly, not scattered everywhere. Ancient history and, you know, different civilizations all around the world talk about the history of giants existing, but we only find it here in Pakistan, which makes it interesting for this theory.
Like, it looks like cured ham. It looks like prosciutto, or should I say prosciutto. Things petrified. We know that. Many things petrified. Did ancient titans petrify into pink salt? There'd be a ton of minerals. And if there was ancient giant trees back then too, which we know there was, sorry, I'm not buying the magma story. I'm not buying the story that Devil's Tower and the other basalt column in Antarctica and the other one, the Giant's Causeway in Ireland. Or Scotland. I'm not buying that's magma. I'm sorry, you're not convincing me that magma forms hexagons. When magma cools, it's just splattered, it's just squishy, it's just freaking all discombobulated.
That's crazy. There's a lot of ones out there. You want one? That's all I just clicked on that one.
Throughout our world, few places are more remote and mysterious
sit back
than
and
the
watch.
continent of Antarctica.
Let's see what
Spanning
they're
over
talking about.
5 million square miles, this mass of land and ice is over twice the size of Australia, yet it holds a grand total of 0 permanent residents. Its brutally frigid conditions and strict visitation laws had made it impossible to fully explore, leading many to question what secrets it may be hiding in its icy landscape. In the mid to late 1950s, the United States was heavily invested in nuclear.
I hope somebody not scared enough to get whatever footage he do have before dropping it and just randomly drop it under a crazy name and disappear from Earth. Like, rest in peace, Oliver Tree. And then it's so crazy. I came down from 100 miles away, and somehow I still make it work. But it's overrated and somehow played out.
And specifically nuclear weapons. In the midst of the Cold War, it was imperative for the country to gain superior knowledge on the subject than the Russians. Because of this, the United States was constantly building and experimenting on all things nuclear. Over the course of the Cold War, over 1,000 nuclear devices were fired as part of U.S. government experiments, with few being as controversial as the experiments conducted in Operation Argus. The main goal of Argus was to test the effects that nuclear weapons had in colder, high-altitude regions. With these experiments, an estimated 3 nuclear missiles were fired in the vicinity of Antarctica. However, the results of this experiment were never finalized, and the whereabouts of the location in which the missiles hit is still very much a mystery. Following this test, the task force in charge of the program was quickly dissolved, and the majority of the documents associated with the project were destroyed. Included in these documents was also the film reel that would have shown actual footage of the tests. So this alone is pretty sketchy. The destruction of evidence, the hiding of evidence as to what happened there, is something that definitely raises some red flags, but it's also something that's not too surprising for that time period. But where this whole situation gets very strange is when you take a look at a previous mission that took place in Antarctica that has confused the public to this day. In 1946, the United States Navy sent troops to Antarctica to supposedly set up a military base and to train them for cold weather conditions as part of Operation High Jump. Now, this wasn't a small convoy or anything like that. All in all, 4,700 troops were sent up to the frigid landscape in December of that year. The operation lasted just barely a few months as the weather conditions supposedly got too severe. Which, I mean, I'm not sure what they were expecting there, if we're being honest. I mean, it's Antarctica. In total, it was reported that 4 men lost their lives in the short expedition. However, some believe that the number is actually much higher than that, and that in their time up there, the United States Navy was attacked. It is theorized that upon the trip through the harsh landscape of Antarctica, the brigade was attacked by unknown crafts which forced them to retreat out of the area. The attack was highlighted in a now leaked Soviet report where KGB agents had gained knowledge from US soldiers present at the site of the attack.
KGB, that's Russia.
The US soldiers claimed that while they were being attacked by these hostile forces, they reportedly opened fire on the crafts, ultimately shooting one down into the water below. However, the advanced technology of these crafts proved way too much for the fleet to handle, and they were forced to retreat after losing several aircrafts and men in the attack. After the fleet returned back to the United States, one of the leaders of the expedition, Admiral Byrd, began discussing with the media that the United States should set up defense bases in the polar regions, and that flying crafts from the area posed a serious threat to the United States. After these shocking and controversial statements, Byrd was thrown into a mental institution and never heard from again. Piecing together the alleged attack on Operation High Jump with the subsequent bombing of the region with Operation Argus, the whole situation leaves a dark theory. Some believe that Operation High Jump was actually an invasion of Antarctica in order to fight off some mysterious force. I mean, why else would they send that many soldiers there? Like, do you really need 5,000 men to set up a research base? Exactly. And maybe when this operation failed, and when the United States Navy realized that they were no match for this advanced weaponry, perhaps they fired those nuclear weapons to take care of the enemy once and for all. Now, I feel like this theory is definitely out there, but the fact that it was in an actual Soviet report, and the fact that Byrd was speaking out about this enemy and was quickly silenced, makes it still intriguing to me. Plus, I can't get over why they would send that many people up there to set up a base, and I can't get over why they would fire those nuclear weapons in Antarctica for research when they didn't even end up posting any actual research from their findings. And what about the tapes? Okay, you know what? Let me chill. Let me chill real quick. So obviously I have a lot of questions about this theory that I wish I could have answered. And perhaps the biggest one to me is what actually was this unknown force that may or may not have attacked the Navy that day. And the theories into this are just flat out crazy. Many of the most popular conspiracy theories surrounding the region of Antarctica deal with alien life. Its vast and unexplored landscape makes it one of the only places on Earth that could really hold alien life that would go completely undetected. Like, aliens could just be chilling up there right now, and guess what? We'd have no idea. I mean, I'm not saying they are, but we really can't say that they aren't, right? Now, throughout the years, many have pointed to things like these pyramid structures throughout the region and claim that they are bases of aliens. They think that aliens actually created these things. And further structures have also been spotted on things like Google Earth that seem to look like man-made or alien-made buildings or layers. And due to our inability to explore these regions and confirm or deny whether these are structures or not, it causes our imagination to kind of run wild with what could have made them and what could be living in there. Now, me personally, I tend to view these structures as just kind of weird-shaped rocks, but I will give some credit that quite a few of them do look pretty convincing. Now, just recently, a photo from Google Earth went viral of what appears to be a spaceship crashed in the snow on an island just outside of Antarctica. With this photo, you see a definite trail behind a large tube-like object, making it appear that whatever this thing was, it had just crash-landed. Now, this photo has quickly become synonymous with alien life in the region, though some experts are quick to dismiss it as a rock that simply slid down a mountain via avalanche. It's a really interesting photo that has many who believe that aliens are truly out there excited. And there's no shortage of other photos like this that supposedly show crashed UFOs in the snowy Arctic. Many believe that these crafts are the work of alien life forms thriving in this desolate region.
If I was Goku,
these people also tend to believe
I'll go
that
fly
these
down
aliens
and do the
were
research
also
for y'all with a
responsible
camera.
for the attack
Ain't nobody
on the
fucking
US
with me.
Navy. It's a frightening concept, thinking that hostile alien life forms may be living in Antarctica, and
That's
the idea
creepy.
that they have attacked before may also mean that they may attack again. And with no defense bases anywhere in the region, nothing would be stopping them from attacking, let's say, a research team of ours in the area. But to me, the idea of aliens being responsible for these mysterious crafts is not even close to being the most interesting theory.
Oh my god. Okay, chill out. My bad.
Let me just start by introducing the theory, and then I'm going to backtrack and explain how it could be possible, so stick with me here. So the theory here is that members of the Nazi Party were able to escape to Antarctica after World War II. It's said that the Nazis also took with them advanced weaponry from the...
Damn, these motherfuckers so cold with their logo. They put it in the plane. They did a formation with the plane. They put the Swanaka. Damn, them boys real like dress with that bitch.
war. Weaponry like flying saucers that were responsible for the attack on Operation High Jump.
What Hitler got to do
Okay, so
with
confusing
Antarctica?
and weird, I know, but let's unpack this for a minute. Even before the start of World War II, Hitler had a fascination with Antarctica.
Okay.
There, he sent multiple fleets to survey the landscape and supposedly look for margarine fat due to the fact that the country's supply would soon be cut off during the war. Okay. On these missions, it is theorized that Hitler saw an opportunity, as the vast continent provided the perfect conditions for a hideout should things go wrong. Now, fast forwarding a bit here to the actual war, it is no secret that Nazis were innovators and they were obsessed with creating new and crazy technology. These technologies included things like wonder weapons and all sorts of other shocking and disturbing things. and it is believed that at one point the Nazis set their sights on creating an advanced aircraft that would be ultra powerful and especially difficult to bring down.
Boy, if Nazis would have won and took over the world, bro. Oh Lord, just imagine a world with, oh my God.
These crafts would have been something completely new to our world if they were actually able to create them. Yep. And in this theory, believers claim that they actually did. They believe that the Nazis were able to build these flying saucers in secret and use their overpowered weaponry to defeat their enemies. And looking at all the other crazy stuff that they were able to invent, I mean, it's still improbable, but it's definitely not impossible that they were actually able to accomplish something improbable. But it's okay, so if they had possible that they were actually able to accomplish something.
Why is it glitching like that?
Okay, so if they had this advanced weaponry, how did they end up in Antarctica?
JT, pulling up, though, man. We went
well, perhaps
crazy,
after
man.
World War II had ended, the remaining Nazis fled their homeland to avoid persecution and landed in Antarctica, where they likely would have never been found. And the idea of Nazi soldiers and officials escaping Germany after World War II is something that is definitely not outlandish. So many of them have been reported dead, and yet very few bodies were actually ever discovered from the high-ranking Nazi officials. Which that's a whole conspiracy theory of its own, whether these people are still alive or not. But if they are, maybe they fled to Antarctica. And maybe they took their advanced aircrafts with them to A, escape undetected, and to B, keep their technology a secret to possibly use at a later date. I mean, this kind of makes sense because, as I mentioned before, the Nazis had more information on Antarctica than probably any other country at the time. Because remember, they had sent crews there on multiple occasions. Also, in 2016, Russians actually discovered a legitimate abandoned Nazi base in Antarctica. So they had at least one legitimate settlement there, and it might not be too far-fetched to believe that maybe they had more that just haven't been discovered yet. So perhaps when the US Navy was visiting the area way back in 1946, they stumbled a little too close to the Nazis' secret base. And the Nazis used their advanced aircrafts to fire at the crews and deter them from coming any closer and truly discovering their hideout. And stretching it even further, maybe the US retaliated by shooting those missile tests in the area in order to secretly and quietly kill off the remaining Nazi troops. It is so crazy to think about. It is so weird. It is so probably not true, but it so totally could be. Maybe someday we'll find out if there was any truth to these wild theories. But until then, many of us will remain fascinated by the mysteries of Antarctica.
That was a crazy one. That motherfucker ugly.
The world's coldest continent is also one of the most mysterious places on Earth. It's as unique as it is secretive, and unlike most destinations, you can't just hop off a commercial flight. Unless you're an elite scientist or an emperor penguin, exploring the Antarctic is forbidden. Even if you could, good luck overcoming frostbite-inducing temperatures of negative 130 degrees Fahrenheit.
Negative 130 Fahrenheit. I will be dead instantly.
Or negative 90 degrees Celsius. But why is it restricted? And where do these rules come from? Grab your mittens and let's find out.
All right, let's do it.
Before the mid-1900s, we knew almost nothing about Antarctica. Then, an American Navy explorer by the name of Admiral Richard Byrd Jr. changed everything. Oh, and before you go asking Santa for presents, the Antarctic is actually at the South Pole. Antarctica equals south, Arctic equals north. Comprende? Anyway, what was Byrd's deal? Aside from enormous expanses of ice, endemic wildlife, and wintry conditions he'd never before seen, what else exactly did he find? While it's still shrouded in mystery, many think that Byrd came across an underground civilization called Agartha. Here, check it out. In 1957 and 58.
A different place to live. Antarctica.
A bunch of countries came together and were like, you know what, we love what this new research is showing and we need to protect Antarctica. So, the Antarctica Treaty was created. What does that mean exactly? Well, it means that smarty-pants scientists in lab coats can venture into the icy abyss for research purposes. For the rest of us, there are exceptions, of course. We can, for example, head to the Antarctic waters on a cruise ship. Can we set foot on the land as well? Technically, yes. There are a few landing spots along the peninsula, but compared to the entire continent's mass, it isn't even a sliver. The treaty also stated that no single nation could own Antarctica. It's divided up into partial ownership for these 7 countries. Here, check it out.
Argentina, Australia, Chile, France, New Zealand.
So we need 7 countries.
New Zealand, Norway, and United Kingdom. Damn, United States ain't got a piece of that ass?
Here, check it out. So we know we're not allowed to wander around the frostbitten...
Wait a minute, let me see that. That motherfucker Joe. We gotta watch out for Joe. Joe. TDG Solar, United Kingdom. I should have known the UK had a piece of that.
So we know we're not allowed to wander around the frostbitten land of Antarctica, but why exactly is that? First and foremost, it's for the protection of the environment. It makes sense too. Not allowed to could own. Check it out.
Red, white, and blue. Argentina though. Everybody red, white, and blue. Pure blood.
So we know we're not allowed to wander around the frostbitten land of Antarctica, but why exactly is that? First and foremost, it's for the protection of the environment. It makes sense too. The world's southern tip is a place overflowing with biodiversity. There's endemic species, underground mountains. Yeah, you heard that right. Blood red waterfalls, and even gold-spewing volcanoes. But as much as we do want to keep our beloved environment thriving, we've also been banned for our own safety. Temperatures can drop to a whopping negative 130 degrees Fahrenheit. That's negative 90 Celsius. For most of us, protecting the environment and ourselves is the whole story. However, for a select few, it's believed that there's some rather shady stuff going on behind that ice wall. As you can see, it's completely visible on Google Maps satellite view, so if something shady was going on, it must be rather well hidden. Perhaps this giant alien face-like structure could be a sign of the unknown? We won't delve too deep into other theories, but they do include a supposed hidden fortress used in World War II, claims that an ancient civilization once lived down there, and of course the idea that it's the gateway to the end of the world because the world is flat. Yeah, right. Okay, so what would actually happen if we did try to visit Antarctica? If you break the rules, get ready to deal with fines of up to 10,000 US dollars.
10 bands?
And even a year behind bars for each rule
365 days in the pen?
that you break. There are a heap of rules to follow, but they mostly revolve around protecting native wildlife. But wait, since nobody technically governs the area, who's actually gonna punish us?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on where you're from. According to the Antarctic Treaty, anybody accused of a crime in Antarctica is subject to punishment by their own country. But what if you're just visiting as a tourist from a country that isn't part of the treaty? Well, in that case, usually the host nation of the ship or plane you arrived on takes the reins. And the captain or pilot of the ship could take full temporary control over you. Antarctica isn't only a restricted landmass, but also one of the largest forbidden airspaces on the planet. It's because of legislation that was introduced in the 80s under the Reagan administration. A law was created that stated no aircraft, regardless of where they are, is allowed to be more than 60 minutes from an airfield in case of an emergency. Since the infrastructure around the South Pole is next to none, we have to avoid it in the name of safety. Of course, that rule usually only affects commercial jets. Chartered jets can still come and go to bring staff to the research bases, which hovers around 3,000 in the summer and 400 in the winter. While it can become rather bleak and boring, there are still a few basic facilities on offer. At McMurdo Station, there's some coffee shops, a general store, a post office, and 2 solitary ATMs. Sadly, some who make it down there don't make it back. Over the years, many bodies have been discovered beneath the ice, and some are never discovered at all. In total, the number of fallen explorers is thought to be in the hundreds.
Damn.
That's all for why no one's allowed to explore the Antarctic.
That's crazy. That's wild. That's diabolical. That's crazy. The day after tomorrow. Yup. Okay. Some no little ball. I ain't going to no Antarctica. I try to see about the.
A shocking discovery was just made in Antarctica. In January 2024, a team of 11 researchers went to Antarctica to analyze melting glaciers and sea levels, but found something incredible. Their research operation was set to last 13 days. Mark Meyer was in charge of this mission. He was an experienced researcher and specialized in glacier melting rates and rising sea levels. On the fourth day, one of the accompanying researchers, Jacob White, was examining a glacier and found a massive 75-pound cod in the ice. This was quite an exciting discovery, as it is very rare to find creatures frozen in ice, and this fish was preserved in the ice for 500 years. On the 12th day, they were finishing up their research. The last thing they needed was an older ice sample. For this, they had to employ the use of heavy machinery. After just 30 minutes of drilling, a researcher discovered a spectacular 5-inch shark tooth. They knew this was incredibly rare to find because the average great white shark tooth is only 2.5 inches. However, what they found next left them all speechless. Only 45 minminutes later, they saw a massive black area in the ice. They didn't know what it was, but a shocking discovery was just
What the
made
fuck you pausing right there for? That ain't the mega. Oh yeah. I want to see if I can get that. Oh my god. I know it was on my IG, but I want the whole story. Hidden for centuries, 1645 masterpiece found behind a painting. So this ain't it.
Another Discover the hidden masterpiece.
Have you seen this painting before? What if I told you we've misunderstood it all along?
Okay,
it's called The Scream, and while many think the figure is screaming, that's not quite right. The artist was inspired by a vivid red sunset that left him feeling so anxious he had a panic attack. So instead of screaming, this figure is actually trying to cover his ears to drown out the noise. Have you seen this painting before?
What y'all think on that? That's your painting.
You've probably seen this painting before.
Do you recognize this painting?
You ain't got a body no more, son.
I'm trying to see what this said real quick.
You ain't got a body. You ain't got a body no more, son. It's all up here now. You want to move something, you got to move it with your